the music.
Cosa Nostra turbulence. Mike and Skrilla. Yeah, what's up, y'all? Consistent heat for y'all, we back in the booth. Y'all haters ain't got shit to say. For you fans, you gotta love it. Picture, nigga. Yeah. Hustlers in the crack game, they hate me, nigga. So I don't hesitate, I'ma blaze these niggas. And my old dude gave me thrillers, long ones. I own guns older than my baby pictures. I was born in the 80s, killer. Chrome guns, dope beams and scopes, it made these Skrilla. You tried the rest, now buy the best. I got grams for less, and my game be fresh. But to my family set, I'm that Birdman, nigga, not Manny Fresh. And when hoes see Skrill, they be like, damn, Manny Fresh. I ain't gotta say shit to get they panties wet. I ain't gotta spread clip. When it's beef, they express it with the tool. Give me a perpetual rolling necklace and the jewels. You slumped in the trunk of a Lexus by the duels. 38 specials what I use, a professional like glue. Dro, I sell it in the tube. I never had a Letterman in school. It ain't no question what I do, but I A1 whip, yay. Dish more balls than N1 mixtapes. Post up with grams of white. If it's E's and O's, you know I flip those like Vanna White. And I shoot fast with 2 mags in my hand. Blue steel with 2 clips. Move fast if you can, niggas.
Crank crack, crank crack, crank O, crank O, crank sacks to get bankroll.
Bankrolls,
Crank crack, crank crack, crank O, crank O,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls. Crank crack, crank crack, crank O,
Crank O's,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls, crank crack,
Crank crack,
crank O's,
crank O,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
in the spot, fuck a pound. Got my niggas weighing bigs. On the block, I pass more rocks than Jason Kidd. It's Mike and Cosa running this bitch. My 40 cal spit once, turn his stomach to grits. 19 niggas know that I'm a savage with shots and keep more desert eagles than Africa got. My whole crew full of murderers, bosses, and green chasers. Posted on the block with rocks the size of cream sage. We got bread, so you niggas know it's always still haters. That's why we ride around with more clips than filmmakers. You got beef with the crew, you must got bad blessings. Killers posted in front of your house like addresses. We got guns that fuck up shit like the Pentagon. Or a dope man with more bricks than a Renaissance. I can send 1,000 and get back 3 mil. We stack cheddar on tracks, Mike and D Scrill, motherfucker. Crank crack, crank crack, crank O,
Crank O's,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls, crank crack,
Crank crack,
crank O's,
crank O,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls. Crank crack,
Crank crack,
crank O,
crank O's,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls, crank crack,
Crank crack,
crank O's,
crank O,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
I'm like Lego, the way that I be sitting on the block. Fiends love us, only ones with $7 rocks. Everybody get real quiet, they know a boss spoke. And on the strip, I flex harder than Hulk Hogan. Niggas talk tough, that's when I spit the heat twice. My yay all over the hood like street lights. You claim that you niggas is real and got dough. My niggas quick to get in your grill like charcoal. Well, I spark fast, these garbage men talk trash. You know my talk ain't cheap, my dogs cough cash. We all blast and leave you stretched like stockings. Then your heart stop pumping when the text stop popping. My pain show. I used to rock a tilted cane go. And if your chain glow, I'ma let them things go. And when them things go, they gon' spit at your ass. I'm this cold, barely old enough to get in the draft, motherfucker. Crank crack,
Crank crack,
crank O,
crank O's,
crank sacks to get bankroll.
bankrolls, crank